all in all, it's an unsettled day. Expect showers, expect gusty winds, and it will feel cool or cold with all of that weather going on. Into Wednesday evening and overnight, we're going to see further showers coming in from that area of low pressure, especially in the east and northeast, and a few coming through to Western England, Wales and Northern Ireland. A lot of cloud cover, and with that breeze, temperatures generally holding up overnight, but potential for a chilly start for Western Scotland, perhaps one or two spots further south as well. A bright start in these areas, a better chance of sunshine coming through on Thursday morning, and showers gradually easing through the day in many spots. But further rain arrives in the far west towards the end of Thursday. That makes its way across the country on Friday, followed by showers. More rain to come on Saturday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Tomorrow's papers, but first, the latest news.
Good evening, I'm Simon Pusey. These are your latest headlines. A leaked recording of the Prime Minister's former press secretary shows her laughing about a Downing Street Christmas party in December last year. The exclusive video, released by ITV News, shows Allegra Stratton answering mock questions at Number 10, 4 days after the alleged party, while the country was under lockdown restrictions. Downing Street maintains there was no party, but Labour's Sir Keir Starmer says it's obvious what happened and accused the government of lying. The Met Police say the following footage will form part of their investigation into rule breaches.
The Prime Minister condone having a Christmas?
What's the answer?
I don't know.
It wasn't a party, it was cheese and wine.
Just be clear, it's not.
Is cheese and wine all right?
No.
It was a business meeting.
I'm joking.
This is recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced.
The Foreign Office's top civil servant has admitted he took a 17-day holiday during the UK's evacuation effort in Afghanistan. Sir Philip Barton told MPs it was a mistake to have stayed on holiday 11 days after Kabul fell to Taliban control, while at the same time former Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab was also on holiday. This comes as a Whitehall whistleblower, Raphael Marshall, accused the government of failing to act and costing lives. Yellow weather warnings for wind and snow have been in place across almost all of the country today as Storm Barra hits. Winds of almost 70 miles per hour have been recorded off the southwest coast of England. The storm has also caused flooding in southwest Ireland. In western Scotland and northwest England, drivers have been warned of potentially hazardous conditions. The US president has told Vladimir Putin that the West is concerned Russia will invade Ukraine and warned of strong economic and other measures should Moscow start a military conflict. The two leaders held 2 hours of virtual talks on Ukraine and other disputes in a video call. The Kremlin has denied having any intention to attack Ukraine. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is warning the new COVID variant Omicron is more transmissible than the Delta strain. This comes as 3 cases are identified in Northern Ireland, the first in the region, taking the total number in the UK to 440. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon is encouraging people in Scotland to work from home, as cases there have risen by 11% in just the past week. You are right up to date. Now back to Headliners with Simon.
Good evening, hello and welcome. My name's also Simon Evans, and this is Headliners, your chance to grab tomorrow's headlines today. Think of it like Black Friday, the January sales, before you've even had Christmas. Get the headlines any earlier and you'd need a crystal ball. Instead, you've got me and a couple of shop-worn but still passionately engaged old comedians way past their bedtime. We'll be coming to them very shortly. They're scowling at me at the moment. Let's see what we'll be kicking about this evening. The Sun has, sorry, it's the wrong kind of wind. That is still a climatic kind of wind, I should emphasise. The Telegraph has plans for Christmas work from home order, and tech companies must protect children from truly horrific abuse. Seems reasonable. Countess says that. And there's a picture of Camilla and the Queen of Ambridge. Indeed. The Eye leads with it's beginning to look a lot like last Christmas. The Guardian has PM accused of lying after Number 10 filmed joking about party, and Letter links Johnson to airlift of animals. The Mail leads with a sick joke the moment the Prime Minister's spokeswoman laughed about an illegal party held at Number 10 last Christmas. We'll be coming to that very shortly. The FT has US urges Berlin to block Russian gas line in event of Ukraine strike. Sanctions drafted to deter invasion. The Mirror leads with another top Tory broke COVID party rules. Education Chief Williamson hosted Christmas bash during ban on socialising. The Metro goes with Number 10 party clowns and Barra barrels in. The Express leads with we need a shot in the arm now. Newsflash, Raab's brain still missing, and that's from the Daily Star. Who else could it possibly have been? So our first story, I think we're going to go to this Downing Street. But first of all, I'm just going to bring you our panellists, Tamandra Harkness and Ian Stone. How are you both?
Well, I'm feeling very old now after that earlier introduction.
Well, you're only old as a comedian. I mean, what I mean to imply, you're steeped in the lore and craft of the business.
Shop-worn.
Yes.
Shop-worn. Yeah, I'll go with shop-worn.
That one was you, Ian, and I'm not apologising for that. You're the first stand-up comedian I ever saw that I can remember seeing. I think that was in about
1848.
1848.
That's smoking
before the
Victorian
Lord
clock.
Chancellor brought in that unwelcome legislation, banned it for over a century. But we're back now.
Yeah.
So our first story, Allegra Stratton caught role-playing awkward questions on camera. And this is Allegra. I have to admit, it works much better as a girl's name, I think, rather than the old Austin Allegro, which I always found a slightly clumsy name for a car or indeed a boy. But Allegra, perhaps conceived in the back of one, who knows? She was then press secretary for the Prime Minister. And the footage you may have seen on the news there is slightly confusing until you realise that it's not actually a press conference. It would be the world's least well-attended press conference, even by current social distancing standards. This is a sort of wargaming scenario where they try out different press conference questions that she might be needing to field. And she's at the lectern, and someone called Ed Oldfield, who I think is no relation to the reclusive multi-instrumentalist or indeed the ex-Bernardo's boy in Couturier, Bruce. Ed pings her a low ball and it catches her under the ribs. And this is the question he asked. I've just seen reports on Twitter that there was a Downing Street party, a Christmas party on Friday night. Do you recognise those reports? Now, that's a question he imagines Allegra might have to field. And it has to be said that without actually saying as much, the general verbal tone and body language and eruptions of nervous laughter do seem to acknowledge that this will be a tricky one to field should it come up in the actual run of play. I think it rather suggests that they have something to hide. Ian, I expect you're experiencing a delicious cocktail of emotions watching this.
The fact that you said, I think it rather suggests. I mean, it does. It says that they had a party. The fact that she answered that with, I went home before laughing, and then he asked, would the Prime Minister condone having a Christmas party because they're wargaming the whole idea? And she said, what's the answer to that? Because they don't know how to defend it, because in the end, she has to defend the indefensible, doesn't she? That the fact that we were all being told to lock down, they're having parties. Then they were going into the whole idea of whether it was, is cheese and wine a party?
It was a business meeting that evolved. It was a sort of natural, it sort of became... I think they're thinking it's a bit like an Aaron Sorkin scenario, you know, where during like the West Wing, where they work all night and they call in pizzas and gradually it became... But of course, those Aaron Sorkin scenes are not during the time of the pandemic.
Hang on a minute. There was also, I've read here, Secret Santas and party games. I mean, I've often had business meeting with Secret Santas and party games.
It's a training exercise.
I know we're doing some work here, but should we just have a game of Twister? I mean, it's beyond belief. But
is Allegra Stratton herself featuring in these fantasy scenarios for you? That's what I want to know.
With Twister.
It's quite a racy name somehow.
Do you know, I like Allegra Stratton. I certainly liked her when she was presenting. I remember she used to be on Newsnight.
No, you're thinking of Michaela Strachan.
That would be... I knew there was...
She was a journalist, though.
I remember when that job was advertised, incidentally, press secretary for Boris, and I thought maybe a comedian, that would be a good role.
Did you apply for it?
No, I did have a think about it, because I'd seen the ones that used to work for Trump, and it looked like, you remember, I mean, some of those guys, they were in for a fortnight at longest, weren't they? But it was a great career.
No, I'm really sad now. I think imagining you going out and speaking, giving those presses. Go on, give us your... How would you say...
Don't bother me with this trivial party nonsense. There are serious issues for the Prime Minister to address.
But what? You see, they've missed a trick here. If they're going to war game and role play the response to the thing, why didn't they just say, yes, what we were doing was role playing, what if somebody were to have an office meeting that evolved into an illegal Christmas party?
Yes, very nice.
How would we recommend people deal with that clearly illegal situation and resolve it peacefully and calmly in a legal manner?
Everything is purely hypothetical, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yes, and they could have just said, no, the whole thing was a wargaming exercise to see what would happen. What would we advise people to do in workplaces if their perfectly normal business
meeting
feel
about this, Ian?
Suddenly evolved into cheese and wine and party games?
They would do that if they cared, I think. But
they
don't. I don't think they genuinely care. Oz Catterall on Twitter. This is quite a serious point.
Oz Catterjee.
Oz Catterjee. Is that his name?
I don't like him.
No, but I sort of find I find him interesting, and he said it's one rule for them and another for everyone else, and I think we all agree.
Boothby Graffo identified that. We make the rules, we break the rules.
He doesn't like banana
make the rules. There's nothing you can do.
It's a great song, but I think that it's the shock that people have that they have one rule for them and one rule for us. That's what they paid for their expensive education.
But that isn't a shock. Surely that's been the rule of the world. That's been the way of the world for as long as mankind has. You know, they're always in.
It feels a bit more brazen now, does it not?
No, it's much less brazen. Much less brazen.
Well, they're not wearing ermine anymore.
Have you never seen the Mask of the Red Death? You know what they used to get up to inside the walls.
There is another party, by the way. There's another party that's broken about. Gavin Williamson had a party.
I know.
I think who would go to Gavin Williamson's party? I mean, that would be the saddest.
I wouldn't break lockdown for it.
I mean, isn't it so?
That would be the one.
Yeah, it's like you're going to have the number 10 party, and then Gavin Williamson will have a second-rate, not very satisfactory party alongside. It's just the whole thing is a metaphor, isn't it?
Gavin Williamson's party, they may well have actually stayed within the rules by the fact there were so few people there. It was social.
But is there something, just to be briefly serious, because a lot of people are saying, I mean, there are people on Twitter, they're kind of going, trust me, this is not funny. My mother died alone in the hospital over Christmas, and you weren't allowing me to see her, and now here you are sniggering about. But there is something about an office event where you've been working together all day, and then a few bottles of wine come in. Did that not happen at all in wider society? As you know, I work alone like you do. I mean, I was totally isolated.
Just you and the dog and a bottle of
exactly.
I think it probably did. I think it probably did happen to a certain extent, but the other people weren't the ones telling people not to meet up.
This is the gotcha, isn't it? It's exactly why the biggest story of the first half of COVID-19 was Dominic Cummings and the purported eye test that drove him all the way to Barra Castle.
John Major talking about family values and back to basics, and then they're all getting caught having sex with other people, and
poor old Stephen Milligan found with the orange peel.
The hypocrisy of it is going to hurt them. I think this time. It's whether they care that it does. I think they're calculating.
They have a massive majority. So all these things ping off their iron sides.
I think with the public it's played really badly because, as you know, as a lot of people have said, people really sacrificed their personal lives and didn't see their relatives and
relatives dying
and they couldn't see them, and then you have number 10 not only flouting the rules that they were making. You know, other people were getting their houses raided by the police on suspicion of having two households in the same house.
Drones overhead on the Derbyshire.
It's like students getting fined 10 grand.
All of that stuff.
And there they are having cheese and wine.
Exactly. They must have a party next to the bed of a dying relative and use the oxygen to pump up balloons.
They might as well. In fact, I bet that was mooted as they discussed what we should do after Twister. Well, the next story is not a million miles away from this thematically. It's yet further revelations of a pitiful state of last August, frankly, of Britain's response to the emerging situation in Afghanistan. This isn't very far back to remember, and previous scandals have focused on the priority that may or may not have been given to evacuating dogs and cats, as you'll recall, ahead of men, women and children. That was an issue which seemed to split the country neatly down the middle, as most stories involving our mute dependents so often will. But this one, I think, might arouse something closer to universal condemnation, as one of the senior Foreign Office civil servants, a gentleman by the name of Sir Philip Barton, decided not to interrupt his holiday to come back and coordinate his department's attempts to minimise the unfolding tragedy. Obviously, the events in Afghanistan gathered pace with horrific speed over the course of a long weekend. What I'd thought would be sort of several weeks, maybe months of deteriorating conditions. The Taliban swept across the country, and in the course of a 3 or 4 day weekend, panic stations at the airport and throughout the country. Well, with what the Spectator described as Icarus-level hubris, which I'm not sure that's an elegant phrase, but I know what they're going at, Sir Philip refused to even disclose where he'd been on holiday, although it seems, at least 2 different locations, one in and one outside the UK, which suggests to me, as much as anything else, that there was a possible very smooth exit point halfway through that holiday, at which point he could have simply abandoned the second half and come back to Whitehall. I think that's remarkable. I suppose there might be a few holiday fundamentalists out there who will defend Sir Philip's priorities. But it is not, I think, a good look. What do you think, Tamandra?
I think it's appalling, absolutely. But I think the whole thing, the whole way we've treated Afghanistan overall, you know, we went in like, oh, we're going to bring civilization and equality and everything to your country. Over 20 years, we don't seem to have left it in a better state. It seems to be a worse state. There was a puppet government that nobody trusted because it was completely corrupt. There was an army that was pretty much fictional. They were drawing wages for soldiers that didn't exist. It shouldn't have been a surprise it collapsed as fast as it did.
But just in terms of Sir Philip Barton, and in terms also...
Oh, yeah, that's outrageous.
There are suggestions that some of the Whitehall staff were refusing to work overtime, that there was a sort of vague attempt to set up a 24-hour hotline kind of service, but
nobody manning
really
it. No, it was ridiculous. It was he stayed on holiday for 11 days after Kabul fell, and now we're abandoning all the people who are in mortal danger because they've worked with our forces that are in there. And because they've tried to set up a different kind of regime in Afghanistan, and then we get out, and then the Prime Minister goes, oh, there's a lot of letters to MPs about cats and dogs. Make sure you fly out the cats and dogs. And, I'm sorry, I know we all love a cat and a dog, and British are famously sentimental about pets, but there were literally thousands of Afghans who are now being murdered by the Taliban, and the priority was given to flying out cats and dogs who are actually not in danger from the Taliban.
I
they would have been fine.
I look at this story, I've got to be honest with you. One of my great sort of quiet reserves of pride in the nation is that despite politicians who come and go and are perfidious and mendacious and third-rate, there are usually something at the departmental level, you know, the Foreign Office, the civil service, the traditions. There's a degree of the smooth kind of velvet purr of the Rolls-Royce engines underneath all the, you know, the noise and the jangling loose panelling on the surface.
Do you still have faith in that?
No, I don't. I really feel like this is like a banana republic kind of effort.
I mean, look, remember, we're also, one of the whistleblower, he talked about this is in the Mail. Afghan rescue flights were hampered by a work-from-home culture in Whitehall. I mean, it might not have happened a couple of years ago, but I do find the old idea that, listen, we'd love to help save your family from the Taliban, but we've got to go and pick up the kids from school. This sort of idea. And so I think that probably didn't help. And there were 5,000 unread messages in the inbox at any given moment with desperate subject lines such as, please save my children.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you could say, well, maybe people thought these were those sort of mails where people have been hacked.
Yeah, Nigerian bank managers.
I'm stuck in Manila with my whole family and all my money is all gone. But essentially, I was reading about William Hague talking about working at the Foreign Office, and he said holidays, he never had a full holiday in all the time he worked there because there's always...
I've interrupted family holidays to come back and do a corporate. I have. Emily, it used to be a real point of contention.
How selfless of you, Simon. If only you were working for the Foreign Office.
You could have taken 11 days off.
I mean, there's always something going on, but you'd imagine that the fall of Kabul and Afghanistan would be something they'd actually go, actually, I might actually come back from holiday. And like you said, it seems like they came back to Britain and just carried on holidaying in Britain for 5 days.
Unbelievable.
Now, come on, mate. There are people who have helped the British government and have been working for the army as interpreters, and they're in trouble.
And also, and perhaps even this will get sharper and sharper, we have this migrant crisis, people trying to cross the channel, and that's not going to go away anytime soon. An awful lot of that is, of course, Afghani refugees, or at least a lot of the confusion over what the moral stance we can take over that is about the confusion between economic migrants and people trying to escape from Syria and other regimes, and specifically Afghanistan. And they're only contributing to that, and they're only undermining their own efforts to try and kind of go, well, we can't just let everyone come in because, you know, we need to look at papers. Well, that's something you should have been doing in August, right? That's exactly how that should have been.
Some of them will try and get here, and some of them may well drown in the channel.
Some of them already have.
So.
And possibly already have. It's a mess all round, and it wasn't helped by the Americans pulling out as quickly as they did.
No.
One thing I would say about what Tamandra said, though, was, you know, we did go there for 20 years, and some women at some levels of society did get an education for 20 years, so I don't think it was a complete failure.
Yeah, they did, but it didn't actually change. That's the thing, you can't just parachute into a country with your army and go, we are going to impose democracy and equality, especially not if after 20 years you're going to go, well, this is harder than we thought, we're off. Good luck with that.
Well, that was no decision. One of the problems with this whole thing, of course, is it's very asymmetrical, wasn't it? The Americans made a decision under Donald Trump's regime. They made a decision to gradually withdraw on the understanding that the Taliban wouldn't take advantage of it until it was, you know...
Now you will be good,
It was
boys,
exactly
right?
like that thing in Douglas Adams' books where there's an agreement that if you lie down in front of the bulldozer, he can't demolish your house. So can we just pretend, can we just assume I've carried on lying down in front of the bulldozer, you know, and then he comes back from lunch and they've decided not to assume that anymore. Anyway, listen, folks, it's time for our break. We're going to go and have a little word from our sponsors. We'll be back very shortly with further stories from the newspapers. Thank you.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. The worst of Storm Barra's weather is now easing, but the weather stays unsettled during the next 24 hours with further rain or showers and continued gusty winds in many places. You can see Storm Barra, a dartboard area of low pressure which deepened rapidly as it made its way across the Atlantic on Monday and the start of Tuesday, now slowing down and gradually filling, so the worst of its impacts will come down in the next 24 hours, but still the potential for some very unsettled weather overnight. Through the evening, 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts possible for parts of Wales and to the Bristol Channel as well. It stays windy in the northeast as well, and showers wrapped around that area of low pressure or longer spells of rain with further hill snow for northern England as well as Scotland. So we start off Wednesday very unsettled with that low still in place. The winds will be coming down through the day, but it's going to take a while, so still the potential for gales for South Wales and southwest England, 65-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And for northeast Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of western England and Wales, a continuous feed of showers through the day. The weather stays unsettled in many spots. Some drier and brighter interludes towards the east of England, western Scotland, for example. However, all in all, it's an unsettled day. Expect showers, expect gusty winds, and it will feel cool or cold with all of that weather going on. Into Wednesday evening and overnight, we're going to see further showers coming in from that area of low pressure, especially in the east and northeast, and a few coming through to western England, Wales and Northern Ireland. A lot of cloud cover, and with that breeze, temperatures generally holding up overnight, but potential for a chilly start for western Scotland, perhaps one or two spots further south as well. A bright start in these areas, a better chance of sunshine coming through on Thursday morning, and showers gradually easing through the day in many spots. But further rain arrives in the far west towards the end of Thursday. That makes its way across the country on Friday, followed by showers. More rain to come on Saturday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. With me are Ian Stone and Tamandra Harkness. We have, I'm saying Harkness, makes you sound like a part of the weather map.
Scottish.
Yeah, that's right. Something which may have experienced the storms. Because that's our next story. There has been a bit of a battering. And once again, the UK's perennial focus of interest, the weather, has caught us on the hop by turning a bit gusty in mid-December. Who could have seen that coming? Storm Barra is currently mainly hounding the west coast of Ireland and those parts of Scotland and the southwest of the United Kingdom which have been left exposed by that otherwise useful windbreak out in the Atlantic Ocean. But it's only a matter of time before sandwich boards, pub signs and picnic tables are scattered to the four winds across the mainland too. One might think this was not worthy of the attention of a crack team of news analysts such as I have gathered here this evening, but in fact Storm Barra very nearly buggered up my day. I was trying to get home from Plymouth this morning and a train was disabled officially by spray at Dawlish, by ocean spray, which I'm sure is more of like an aftershave than a weather event. Anyway, a second train that was then sent to rescue it was also disabled. Long story short, I ended up having to get an £85 cab to get around the obstruction. So I'm down. We're going to monetise that little inconvenience. Ian, is it just me, or do you sometimes get the feeling we quite like the capacity of the briefest incident of inclemency to put paid to our plans in Britain? It's almost like a code of honour among the British, isn't it? That the weather will get the best of us.
We like to talk about it, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, you said spray at Dawlish, and I was reminded of Reggie Perrin.
Yes, exactly.
15 minutes late and some excuse, and you could say
spray at Dawlish,
disable the train. Disable the train, we like to talk about the weather.
Yeah.
Hot, it doesn't. In mild. Mild is not even weather, is it? It's just mild.
There's some lovely measure on the weather on the screen for them, actually. I don't know where that is. That looks... Oh, God, somebody's up in the hills there. That looked like a nice old Victorian seafront. They always look best when they're being battered.
Listen, I think the thing you said to me before we came on air is that we're always constantly... When it happens, these extremes of weather, we're like, my God, this has never happened before since last winter.
Unprecedented.
Exactly, all of that
But they were saying that last week with the other storm when they're going, well, we're sorry you've been without electricity for 10 days. This is unprecedented.
Here's the one for the electricity. This is from the front page of The Sun. Energy chiefs felt the heat yesterday after blaming the Storm Arwen power cut crisis on the wrong type of wind. Apparently, more than 150,000 households were without heating or electricity for up to 11 days.
Still are.
But they blamed it on downed power lines had been hit from a surprise direction.
What, up through the if somebody said that to you, who worked for Northern Power, why don't they just laugh in their faces? What are you on about?
But the thing is, nowadays, if this had happened, I don't know, 20 years ago, and they just said, oh, no, sorry, you've had no power for like weeks and weeks, when it's our only job is to keep providing you with power. It was the weather. People would go, what are you talking about? This is your only job. Now they go, oh, no, well, it's weather. It's because of climate change. See, it's climate change. We can't keep providing the electricity. It's climate change.
Surprising.
It's like, it's one of those universal excuses. Exactly. It's like Brexit, climate change, COVID. It's like, why are you no longer doing the one job we pay you to do?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's climate change. Or, it's COVID.
Great Western Railway, with whom I did my business today, blamed
They did their
the power
business on
outage
you.
At Dawlish, the spray at Dawlish, not only for disrupting the service, meaning I had to get a cab around Dawlish and all the way to Exeter to get on a new train, but the one I boarded at Exeter had no buffet car, no produce, no sandwiches, not even a little tray of nuts, because the disruption at Dawlish had meant that the stores hadn't managed... I don't know whether they have some kind of...
They shipped them in to Cornwall.
And then they can just endlessly reiterate these excuses.
Is it waterlogged because of the spray?
I don't know, maybe. I would have taken a damp sandwich
at that point. Yes, I'll have a
damp ham sandwich. Apparently what happens is at Dawlish, the line runs so close to the sea.
It's basically on the beach, isn't it?
Yeah, and so it does just wash up and it shorts the electricity which it relies on. Well, my answer to that is have that stretch, get a little steam locomotive ready to take you through that. It would be an absolute killer on the tourist trail, wouldn't it?
I like that.
Ready
I like
to
that.
go, the little locomotive who could.
Yeah.
Paint a face on the front.
Yeah.
Have you thought about the logistics of having a
train face?
Well, I'm saying you have a fast train and then you suddenly decouple.
Only on days when you know that spray is acting
Those steam trains were really fast.
Yeah, they're fast.
Yeah,
they
were.
Filthy. You keep the windows shut. They're all
He wants to live like a Victorian gentleman.
Well, he does live like a Victorian gentleman.
Emergence I've removed the smoking cap just in time.
He's come out to indulge the magic lantern.
You have a story for us about Spain humiliating Germany. Apparently, this is nothing to do with the football.
I said to Simon, Spain humiliated Germany. He goes, is this a football game? No, Simon. It was no. It's about gas supplies. Spain humiliates Germany as it breaks from Russian gas vulnerability. This is in the Express. I'm not sure why Spain has humiliated Germany, but basically Germany relies on Russian gas. Yeah. And there is a big discussion about the new pipeline, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which will transit gas from Russia into Germany, bypassing Poland and Ukraine. So there are all sorts of geopolitical things going on with that. And the certification of that pipeline has been suspended. And Vladimir Putin is not very happy about that. But Spain doesn't have to worry about that because it gets its gas from Algeria instead. So Spain is just basically just waving gas in the face of the Germans.
I like my
fine.
farts in your general direction.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah. That was the plot to The World Is Not Enough, wasn't it? Or Tomorrow Never Dies.
Lighting your farts?
The pipelines from Russia into Germany, and somebody sort of out in the middle of the tundra sawing it off with
You're on your own. You're on your own.
One of the Bond movies. One of the Pierce.
Oh no, I realise that. It's Pierce Brosnan, right?
Yeah, it was definitely. It was a pipeline. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if James Bond is involved in this.
I tell you, there's a little reverse. Germany might like to enjoy this. That they nevertheless have vastly more solar power than Spain. They're vastly more effective solar fields in Germany. Yeah, Germany, I know, is literally it's unbearably sunny. They have to wear hats to keep it off, whereas the Germans,
That was the first advertising slogan. It didn't really work. I'm just saying it's unbearable. Okay, I didn't know that, so Germany wins in that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's Siemens who are, I love, it's just, but I think it is their solar technology is fantastic. So hopefully in 10 years' time...
And they've seeded it all over Germany.
Yeah, very good. Nicely done.
Nice.
Yes. Amanda, you have a story which is about misogyny, not hate crime.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is really complicated. All right, so people have been talking about there's all these hate crimes. You can get the police turning up at your doorstep. Basically, if you send the wrong kind of tweet, they say, you tweeted, you've offended this person, this is a hate crime. Just to add an extra twist of madness, things can be a hate crime even when they're not actually a crime.
Yes.
So you can get a non-crime hate crime recorded and never even know it's on your criminal record.
Non-crime hate-related incident or something.
So, yeah, exactly. So all this is already really complicated. And then some women have pointed out, it's like, well, yeah, there's all these other reasons you can have a hate crime recorded, but oddly enough, not hate crime against women. So isn't this a bit of a gap? And they've been saying, can we add misogyny as a hate crime? And the Law Commission said, no, actually, we don't think that would work. Instead, there should be a new offence to tackle public sexual harassment, and maybe the existing offence of stirring up hatred should be extended to include sex and gender. And I mean, personally, I don't think anything should be a hate crime because you're basically saying this crime is worse because of what you were thinking at the time. The fact that you bashed her with a stick is irrelevant. It's because you were thinking. It's like if you just randomly bashed her with a stick, that would be fine. But because she's a woman, it's
once
somehow...
it becomes an actual crime, you think that would sort of encapsulate and almost extinguish or render...
Well, I just don't think that... I don't think calling anything a hate crime helps because you're trying to get inside people's head. It's like... Sorry, attacking people is wrong, whatever you do it. You shouldn't try and say, this is worse because of what we think you were thinking at the time when you were doing it.
I broadly agree with you, but if you've gone down the road of having culture and religion being sort of hate crime, then perhaps misogyny should be represented as well. I know that Conservatives, I remember watching The West Wing, which is where I get most of my political opinions from. Conservatives,
Which
Democrats...
one are you? Are you Toby?
I would like to... I think, apart from my misspent youth, Toby would have been the one. Angry Jew. I like the whole feeling of it. But in that, I remember the Conservative woman, Ainsley Hayes, who they featured in one or two series, who said that she didn't want protection as a woman because she felt she was protected by the laws generally.
Exactly.
And I sort of
I'm with her then.
Yeah.
But you're both right, but there is also the tendency at the moment for so many hate crimes that if one is left out, it can feel a bit... And there is also an element, I would say, the degree to which the trans movement have managed to agitate for protection of trans identities, which a lot of people feel are already slightly in opposition to female spaces and so on, to say you can have a hate crime against a man who identifies as a woman.
But not as a woman.
But not as a woman.
But that's the other thing is... You ask most of the politicians, OK, so what is a woman? And half of them won't answer because they're scared of giving the wrong answer.
OK, well, I think this...
And then you get the police going round to people who've tweeted about actually only biologically female people are women and adult and humans can't change sex. So the idea that police are somehow suddenly going to be able to magically identify who is attacking someone because of misogyny is crazy. I mean, if you don't know what a woman is, how can you possibly know where misogyny is?
It's possible to have a hate crime which might be wearing a T-shirt saying a woman is an adult human female.
Exactly.
Right? That's actually become, I mean, I don't think a criminal offence, but
it would be a non-crime hate. Exactly.
Organisations and
Yeah. Well, police, I mean, it's not like the police don't have enough to be doing right now anyway.
Well, exactly.
It's not their field of expertise either, is it? Finally judging nuanced, neologisms and
It really isn't.
I think they're better off identifying scamps. I think that's what they're good at. That's
And
what they've always been good
ne'er-do-wells.
at. Scamps and ne'er-do-wells.
Go and play down your own end of the road.
And pure domestics, which
And
are best left
ruffians.
alone.
Exactly.
Anyway, time for a break. This is more words from our sponsor. We'll be back very shortly. Thank you.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners, the show in which we look through tomorrow's papers the night before the morning after. Tonight, I'm joined by Tamandra Harkness and Ian Stone. Ian, you have the Express next, and this is apparently the latest opinion on Omicron, which sounds quite uplifting and benevolent.
Well, unlike the weather, the Omicron outbreak is mild.
Nice.
Basically, the Express said it ended in sight, light at the end of the pandemic tunnel. What happened was there was a party, a Christmas party in Oslo, perfectly legal to do that.
Cheese and wine.
There were cheese and wine and Secret Santa.
Both naturally.
Secret Santa, in Oslo, it feels sort of closer to home, doesn't it, really?
It's not so much of a secret there. It's an open secret.
But it just lives up the road. Anyway, it was they had an outbreak at a party, 120 people, the biggest outbreak in the world outside of South Africa, and the people who got it, all of them got it at the party, and they all had a mild illness.
Yeah.
And that we was on this show a couple of weeks ago talking about this very thing, that what we want from COVID now is a very highly transmissible and mild disease.
Yeah.
And Tina Ravlo, who is an Oslo infectious doctor, said it might be that it has now replicated and mutated so many times that this is the optimal position from the virus point of view to spread widely and not kill the host, which is where it wants to be. And if that is the case, we might be seeing, if it becomes the dominant strain, we might be seeing basically the end of the pandemic.
It's weird, though, isn't it, how the papers, the press, the media, they all kind of still use this language, we fear that Omicron will become. Omicron now expected to become the dominant strain, as if that is automatically a bad thing, whereas clearly it could be a good thing.
If it was mild and very contagious, then it's like a natural vaccination programme, isn't it? So even the people who didn't want to get vaccinated, they'll get Omicron. That will give them presumably a level of immunity against worse strains. I was confused, actually. I misread this story when it said an outbreak in Oslo Christmas party seen as the biggest in the world outside of South Africa. I was like,
how big was
wow,
that?
it's the biggest Christmas party in the world outside of South Africa. Even bigger than the one at number 10. But no, it's just the biggest outbreak.
I like the fact that this new strain is called Omicron, which is an odd... I thought I knew the Greek alphabet, but I don't recognise that letter
it's the
from
short
it at all.
O,
Yeah, little short O.
Right.
But it also could be read as 0 micron. A micron is a very short measure, and 0, of course, is 0. which would mean that it is like a vaccination, but if you're afraid of needles, then this one is literally 0 microns wide.
Wow, that's really,
isn't it amazing?
That's really
so
deep.
it's like God
really
himself
deep.
has designed this as a vaccination for people who don't like
a
needles.
Needle of 0
which I
width.
realise is not people's only point of hesitation about having been, you know, having a liquid SIM card injected into their blood.
It is for a lot of people, though.
Yeah.
I thought I was alone in being scared of needles. And then I was saying this to when I went to be vaccinated, and they're like, don't worry, everybody's scared of needles. And then I'm talking to some other people, and they're going, no, I haven't been vaccinated. I think it was this big thing. And they're like, no, I'm just really scared of needles.
Oh, get over
wow,
it. Get
God,
over
I thought
yourself.
so
And you
many
know what?
people.
I have one a fortnight.
If there is some sort of SIM card, or if it helps my broadband, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, if we're still not sure, I think maybe Number 10 should have another Christmas party. Let's test it out on them.
Yes.
Demandra, you have a story about Sarah Ferguson, who seems to have a wonderfully endearing view of herself and her ranking in royal history.
So this is the Mirror, right? Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, formerly married to Prince Andrew. She says she may be the most persecuted woman in royal family history. And I'm thinking, OK, well, we've got Anne Boleyn. Mm-hmm. She was actually beheaded. And then there was another one of Henry VIII's wives, also beheaded. Mary, Queen of Scots,
yes.
also beheaded. Joan of Navarre, accused of witchcraft and imprisoned in a castle for 3 years. So I know she may feel a bit put upon that her ex-husband is, you know, facing allegations, underage girls linked with famous paedophiles and all this kind of thing. But she's also wrote a new novel while under lockdown for therapy and self-esteem, and she's been approached by a French production company about the film rights. So I think most persecuted is not the phrase that I would use.
I would say even Princess Margaret was a bit more persecuted than her. She wasn't allowed to marry the man she had.
Princess Diana as well.
Well, Diana
she had a tricky time.
To her,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but the point is, you know what? This story was full of revelations. I mean, her latest novel. There are other Sarah Ferguson's novels.
Yeah,
I must start on her oeuvre.
she wrote this children's book about a talking helicopter. You must remember that.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Is that, yes, that's right.
That always suggested me a really unsavoury sex game that she and Andrew might have played.
I really want to be thinking.
Wide.
I want to be thinking about that now. But I mean, part of the reason that she might be persecuted is because she says things like, I loved him and I still love him today. This is talking about Andrew. I will stay by his side because I believe in him. He is a good man.
And he doesn't sweat.
And he doesn't sweat. And he's and he lets me have the last bit of pizza. I mean, look, I understand the point she's making because she lives in a social media age.
Yeah.
Anne Boleyn did not get on her phone every 5 minutes and see courtiers having a go at her and talking about the way she was dressed and her hair and all the rest of it, whereas Fergie has had a lot of that for her whole life. But on the other hand, she's lived in a castle for 30 years and off other
Without
people.
being imprisoned. And Anne
something
Boleyn
quite
never
good,
wrote a
doesn't
book
it?
about a talking helicopter.
Don't you think, in a way, this is quite encouraging? Because a lot of us, we envy the rich, their lifestyles and their houses and their
envy the
dresses,
royal
but they're
family.
never happy, are they? They're never happy. They just always think that they're persecuted. They think everyone's out to get them. This is not a unique case.
No.
It's actually a very common kind of mindset which evolves in people who are in the public eye and never quite feel they get the respect that they deserve.
Do you think it's the inbreeding fosters paranoia?
No, I don't think she's inbreeding at all. I don't think she is inbred at all, Fergie. I think she looks quite robust.
She's like a normal
blood from outside, really.
Yeah.
But
can't be that then.
I would have thought minor royal is not a bad gig, to be honest with you. At least you don't have to do a lot of that ceremonial stuff.
I gave my son a middle name of Armstrong in the simple hope that he might be accepted as Edward Armstrong.
I just think in the context of the story and the accusations, I don't think minor royal is really the phrase we want to be using here.
Minor?
I wouldn't know. That's a word. That's a word I'd eschew.
Next up, we have a story in the Telegraph that has got the Pope hot under the cassock.
Well, we have.
I'm
yeah.
with the Pope on this one, though.
The Pope has compared the EU to a dictatorship for trying to ban Christmas. This is in the Telegraph. He's warned the EU not to take the path of ideological colonisation. There was a 32-page report that was published by Brussels on inclusive language that advised staff to say human-induced instead of man-made, and to avoid reference, I think this is where the Pope got really upset, to avoid reference to Christmas during the holiday season. season. This is not just in the EU, by the way. In America now, it's Happy Holidays rather than Happy Christmas.
Winterval.
There's all these.
I still like Winterval, but I think we should have it as well as Christmas.
There's all these things, but it does feel, and you mentioned this when we were in the office, saying it feels like the Pope is basically a sort of Brexiteer.
He's a bit of a Brexiteer.
Vaxiteer, I suppose.
And he's like Rod Liddell in a dress, isn't he? Basically, the Pope.
He does say that he believed.
I don't want in my
he
head.
believed the EU was necessary.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, the EU, because I've said before, and I mean, this is a very obvious and route one comparison, but the EU was a bit like Christendom. It was a bit like the Holy Roman Empire. We had the break from Rome, which was Brexit, was like revisited that 500 years later. There's always been that kind of slight idea that Britain is on the edge of an empire that extends naturally more from Rome than from Brussels, Paris or Berlin. I think of Rome as being the kind of the focal point somehow of a traditional conception of Europe as a potentially, because we had the Roman Empire, and that was the very first,
and the Treaty of Rome.
Achievement. Yeah, the Treaty of Rome.
It's you're essentially saying Reformation 2, the return.
What I'm saying is the Pope, in a way, might be the natural head of the EU, and if that were to happen again, I could get behind it. But I am interested in, what do you say, it was human-induced
rather than man-made.
I mean, that's really clumsy, isn't it, apart from anything else?
Well, I
think
think
the same thing.
I think essentially what happened was that they issued this report and everyone went, "Oh, stop it!"
And they were doing it.
And they sort of took it back and said, "Oh no, it needs a little bit of work." But at the same time, he had a wide-ranging exchange with journalists, and he also, Francis, urged caution in the interpretation of a damning report into child sex abuse by French Catholic clergy, saying the historical situation must be viewed in context. What context is there?
Well, the context he's talking about, Napoleon attempting to take over Europe and imposing all his... No, but he had very similar ideas. Napoleon did, apart from the ridiculous sort of military domination, the Napoleonic Code imposed new language, it imposed new measures, weights and measures, Christmas and all the rest of it.
This is child sex abuse. I don't think that's talking about Napoleon.
Oh, sorry, I missed the paragraph.
This is a wide-ranging chat. He was talking about the EU, but then he went on to child sex abuse. To a certain extent, this is why... OK, the Pope's upset, but on the other hand, I couldn't really give a monkeys as well. I understand the point you're making and the point that he's making as well, but he's the head of the Catholic Church, and surely they're discredited in all sorts of ways.
No, you can't say that. You can't say that. The Catholic Church has a 2,000-year history. It's the single longest-lasting human institution we've ever created.
Go to Ireland and ask them what they think.
I understand what you're saying, Ian, but honestly, you could say, there are plenty of people, you say, go to Palestine and ask them what they think of Jews. There's always somebody...
We're not talking about religion here.
Well, you certainly are. There's always somebody who will be able to find, like, wrongdoing or a smear or a black mark on somebody's record, but the Catholic Church has an extraordinary store of wisdom and experience in terms of making long-lasting institutions. The EU was established earliest in about 1956. It's like already wobbling, and I think he's got quite an interesting perspective on why that might be, what your overreach might be. I think he's somebody who's worth listening to.
Yeah, OK.
He's somebody who's worth critiquing. I'm not saying you should take his word as dogma or as a papal bull if you're not part of the church, but I don't think you can just dismiss it as bull either, because he comes from a place of great learning. I think there is a real tendency, I'm going to be honest and just go off on one here, there is a real tendency among the secular left to dismiss everything that religion has learned and examined and observed and has weighed up over the last 2,000 years because they have provided a home, yes, to pederast. But that is not all the Catholic Church has been. Absolutely not by any means. It's really, really quite offensive to say that your entire structure and all the wisdom and all the high-ranking officials within that are debased and have no right to speak on any issues because there is this one very, very serious issue which they have failed to address, but so have many, many other large organisations.
Covered up over years and years, but I take your point. I do.
OK, good.
I like the bit at the end where he says he's ready to go to Moscow and meet the Patriarch of the Eastern Orthodox, Patriarch Kirill, and talked about how he met him before, and he says, "We are brothers, and we talk straight to each other. We do not dance the minuet."
Nice.
I'd like to see that personally.
I would,
and Archbishop Kirill.
And Patriarch Kirill.
I think a lot of people are getting
the
into the Eastern Orthodox thing now. Apparently, a lot of people who feel that funny enough, that the Catholic Church, not that it's not because of the abuse of minors, but because it has drifted too far to the left and seems to be too progressive and liberal in its new doctrines.
They want bigger beards and more incense.
And they want tradition. And I think actually people do want tradition. There's a lot
We've
of
got big
similarities.
beards and tradition.
The Eastern
all of that
Orthodox, the
stuff.
Russian Orthodox and Judaism is very, they are cut from the same cloth. Tamandra, the mirror next, apparently the Queen's corgis could be in danger of being mauled.
This story has absolutely everything. The Mirror. Queen and corgis risk wolf or bear encounter under Chris Packham's Rewild call. OK, so Chris Packham, his bid to rewild the royal estate's been criticised by Lord Marland in the House of Lords, who questioned what would happen if the Queen or her corgis encountered a wolf or bear. So this is Chris Packham.
That sounds like something your child would say. Who would win?
Exactly. I'm afraid
Only one. What about two
this
together?
was my first thought, and my first thought was this actually should be how we choose the next monarch.
Yeah.
They should be sent out alone in the wilderness with only a corgi to help them to encounter a wolf or bear unarmed, and whichever one of them comes back alive gets to be the next monarch after the Queen's gone.
Wasn't that in the 300? Like when the Spartans, they used to send them out?
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that, mate. They should do that with the royal family.
But the other thing here is, so it's Chris Packham, like, you know, the TV presenter, was it Spring Watch, whatever. He led a children's march to Buckingham Palace to deliver a petition with more than 100,000 signatures asking the royal family, as the UK's biggest landowner, to commit to rewilding its estates. But it's like, this is children, right? You say to children, don't you think there should be wolves and bears in the Queen's gardens? They would go, yes, of course there would. If you said to children, do you think there should be killer dinosaurs in the Queen's estates? Do you think there should be a shark in your local swimming pool? Of course the children are going to say yes, aren't they?
I've thought for some time that we should probably, rewilding wolves and bears up in the north of Scotland. I'm obviously not an expert. I like the idea of it. Aesthetically appeals to me. I certainly think tigers in National Trust properties.
That would liven it up a bit.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And they could be quite old tigers, you know. You wouldn't necessarily, they would kind of retired, like the senior circuit for tigers.
And it would be a nod to, you know, the shameful colonial tradition, the country houses and everything.
The whole of the stately home tradition is absolutely based on a kind of bringing everything home.
Colonials bring it. Yeah, it was give them a chance to fight back.
Yeah.
I'll vote for
They've killed a fair few wild animals, haven't they, over the years, the royal family? So why don't they just house some now?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there must be so many faces on the wall of the ones that Prince Philip shot.
Wolves and Bears things is about finding homes for homeless
wolves and bears.
It's actually
it's not an adoption. It's not an adoption type thing.
I'm all for it though.
I mean,
Alfie here has been on the streets.
We didn't think we could love the Queen more, but if she fought off a bear, I mean, how brilliant would that be?
I bet she could.
Emerged with her tiara a little bit.
She was in the armed forces during the Second World War, I reckon, and you know, and she can handle a gun. I think if they let her take a gun, she'd be fine.
But they do.
But
have
then
a lot
the
of
next
land,
one, you know, the next monarch, I don't think it should just be hereditary. I think you should send them out. You've got your bare hands and your corgi, and whatever you encounter next, you've got to come back with the skin.
So who's competing? William, Charles, and Harry?
Well, it's just I think, you know, we go down the line. So, you know, start with Charles and go down. And the first one to come back alive gets to be monarch.
It's this sort of Squid Game for the royals.
Speaking of squids, the same bill actually is going to extend legislation to cover octopuses, crabs, lobsters, crayfish, and squid and cuttlefish.
No mention of beaver.
To recognise them as experiencing pain, distress, or harm.
You're lucky, to be honest, in Scotland, you get a glimpse of ankle. Moving on to the Telegraph, and the government are suggesting we dob in our dinner guests, if we think they are smoking cannabis. If we think they're smoking cannabis.
Well,
did
you have dinner before you came?
Is that a cannabis cigarette that you have? Between
That's a doobie that you're smoking.
I remember that smell.
I mean, this is Kit Malthouse has said that anyone who witnessed the law being broken at a festive season get-together should report it, even if it was just a guest lighting a joint. He said he's never been offered drugs at a party.
Is that Boris breaking up a party that we're looking at there in that picture?
Oh yeah, no. Boris went on a dawn raid to a house disguised as a policeman.
This is trying to break up the county lines, which I think that's serious criminality. And obviously, they're basically saying that the middle classes are connected to that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dishonesty on all sides of this debate, isn't there? Really, let's be fair. And my partner said to me, well, why don't the middle classes campaign more vigorously for legalisation?
Is this
of
your
drugs?
business partner in the drug dealing
Things
business?
have got to be downhill since lockdown, I'll be honest with you. It's much harder to get out.
So you're not actually shop worn. You're just this is the second business.
Yes, but it's there is a lot of dishonesty, and I don't think this another war on drugs. I mean,
no, it doesn't work.
We've heard it quite a few times, and the last few wars don't seem to have worked very well.
Well, no, I think they are. They're emphasising. Well, I think it's a change of emphasis because they are starting to say, look, you know, at the moment, if you're in my part of the world, you're a kid on the street, you're going to get raided. If you're a barrister with a few lines at a dinner party, you're not going to get raided, and that's wrong. And they are looking at treating, getting people off drugs and hitting the dealers. I think that's the general idea.
It's fair enough. I mean, I've always said, you know, anything that doesn't carry a custodial prison sentence is one rule for them, one for all for us. If you've got a Lamborghini, you can park anywhere you want, you know, because the 60 quid fine is of no consequence, isn't it? You can't get a clamp on those things. Anyway, that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you feel entertained, edified and informed. Thank you to my guests, Tamandra Harkness and Ian Stone, neither of whom look remotely shop-worn, and I apologise for rubbing their reputations. I'll be with you tomorrow, same time, same place. For now, goodbye.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. The worst of Storm Barra's weather is now easing, but the weather stays unsettled during the next 24 hours with further rain or showers and continued gusty winds in many places. You can see Storm Barra, a dartboard area of low pressure, which deepened rapidly as it made its way across the Atlantic on Monday and the start of Tuesday, now slowing down and gradually filling, so the worst of its impacts will come down in the next 24 hours, but still the potential for some very unsettled weather overnight. Through the evening, 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts possible for parts of Wales and to the Bristol Channel as well. Stays windy in the northeast as well, and showers wrapped around that area of low pressure, or longer spells of rain with further hill snow for northern England as well as Scotland. So we start off Wednesday very unsettled with that low still in place. The winds will be coming down through the day, but it's going to take a while, so still the potential for gales for South Wales and South West England, 65 mile per hour wind gusts. And for northeast Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of Western England and Wales, a continuous feed of showers through the day. The weather stays unsettled in many spots. Some drier and brighter interludes towards the east of England, Western Scotland, for example. However, all in all, it's an unsettled day. Expect showers, expect